Hello and welcome back to the Naked Expat channel. I'm sure that perhaps the title or thumbnail caught your attention. Life is all about prostitution. Well, what's all that about? Well, about 30 years ago, a very good friend of mine and my mentor and life coach said to me, "You've got to appreciate that life is all about prostitution." And I was thinking, well, what are you talking about? What are you on about? That sounds a bit harsh. And he was like, no, life is transactional. It is all about prostitution. It's about what you want and what you're prepared to give. As an example, a lot of Western guys want to find a girlfriend, fiance, wife, long-term partner from Asia, because they've kind of given up on the selfish, independent women from the West. Western women are just too bossy. They're always me, materialistic. If the guy's not earning $200,000 a year, the woman's not interested. It's extremely materialistic and narcissistic, and it's me. Well, what they don't understand or they don't appreciate is it's no different in Asia. Either Asia, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, it's no different. We're talking about the differences between men and women, cats and dogs. It is no different in Asia. It's just that in the West, it's more a case of me. And in the East, it's more a case of family. Because in the West, people are not as family orientated as they once were. Things are very different now than they were in, say, the 1920s, 1930s. And in Asia, there's still, because Asia is a couple of decades behind the West, there's still a reliance on family, and family is the most important. But don't think it's cheaper. Don't think you're going to get away with it not costing you a lot of money, because ultimately it's the same. I don't want to date an older woman from the West because it's always me. It's going to, it's expensive divorce and everything else. And they're also too materialistic. Women in Asia are more simple. They're more compliant. They're submissive, obedient. Well, hang on a minute. There's a price to pay for that, guys. Life is transactional. It's well known that in the East, you don't just get involved with the girlfriend. You don't just marry the wife. You marry the whole family. Jokingly aside, it costs you a lot of money. In Asia, women play the long game. But you've only got to go on any dating site and you'll see that the vast majority of Asian women on there are looking for a man with a provider mindset. They are family orientated. Well, what do they mean by that? It's not just providing for them and paying the bills. It's about maintaining the whole family. You have to appreciate that. As an expat, you need deeper pockets than you think you do. Now, it is true that a lot of Asian women do not have an issue being submissive, subservient, and to sort of live and obey their husbands. They do not have an issue with that. But there's a payoff for that, in that you're not just supporting them, you're supporting their family. Now, you take that mindset and you rewind and go back to the West. These women that you're criticizing in the West because they're too lazy, they don't want to do anything, and they expect so much, and they're greedy and they're materialistic. Well, how is that any different transaction-wise? Because they're looking for something and you need to be a provider for that as a man. It's no different than in the East, where you need to be a man and grow a pair and provide. It's just in a different way. In the West, it's not expected for you to support the woman's family. In the East, it is. So as an expat, you have to be prepared for that, because you're coming into a different culture. Your pockets will need to be deeper than you think they are. If you're poor in Asia, you haven't got a life. That's it. There's no social security. There's no support structure in many cases. And a lot of people from the provinces have got nothing. So any expat that comes along, they're going to be attracted to. Of course they are, because you're giving them potentially a way out, an escape from the mundane. But it's going to cost you. It doesn't matter if your partner's from the West or the East. It's going to cost you. And it's no different for Western women either. There are thousands of wealthy Western women, divorcees, cougars, label them however you wish, that go to places like Turkey. I had a very wealthy client in her 70s who had a 35-year-old Turkish husband. For all the reasons you would suspect. She was very wealthy, very virile, and wanted a younger husband. She went to Turkey for that. A lot of Western women in Turkey, a lot of Western men in Asia. Hey ho. Fundamentally, men and women are different. You don't need a lecture from me about that. Men are like dogs and women are like cats. Cats and dogs can sometimes sleep together, but most of the time they fight like cats and dogs, hence the saying. And women are very in tune with their senses more than men are. Men are very visual, and that's it. You got to look good, or they're attracted to a hot-looking woman, nice body, or nice clothes, or well turned out, nice hair. She looks hot, That's what you're attracted to. It's physical. It's physical and it's visual. Women are more in tune. Women are much better at reading body language than men are. It's a well-documented fact. They pick up more on olfactory clues, which is smell, kinesthetic clues, which is touch, and auditory clues, which is sound. And a lot of women, if you ask them about a great memory from the past, they'll recollect it was the way that he smelled, or the way that he touched me, or it was the sound. It was the sound of the river, or the water, or the music, our favourite song, that we danced to. Whereas men, it's like, she had a nice ass. She had nice legs. What were you attracted to? Or she looked fantastic. Much more visual, much more physical. It's well known. Also, jokingly aside, if you want to date a woman, there's a well-known tip that find out what cologne or aftershave that her father used to wear. And if you wear the same, for some unknown reason, that woman's going to find herself attracted to you. It's almost like a nesting instinct. You're almost like a sugar daddy, a fatherly figure. And it's true, it's well documented. It's been proven as a scientific fact. In Asian cultures, where there isn't a dowry paid for the girl, you are expected to not only love and support and take care of your partner, girlfriend, fiance, wife, but it's also expected for you to take care of the family. It's expected. It's the done thing. You don't just marry the woman, you marry the family. Now, if there isn't no dowry and you're not paying, 2 carabaos, 2 buffaloes, 2 chickens and a couple of roosters for a woman, or a lump sum of cash, you go to some poor remote village and you drop a couple of pigs and a couple of carabaos to the family, they're going to say, great, take all of my daughters. You're welcome to all of them. Because at the end of the day, it's a support structure. This leads me on to a lot of Western guys, certainly middle-aged guys, 50 plus, falling in love, quite rightly so, with a really cute, beautiful, attractive young girl from Asia or the Philippines. They know that they don't really want some bossy cosmopolitan woman from the cities. They'd much rather have a girl from the provinces who's maybe a little bit more sweet. Well, if the girl from the province hasn't been ruined by a local boy already, there's a lot of solo mothers in Asia, certainly in the provinces, then do you think that girl growing up throughout her childhood has thought, I can't wait to meet a really old guy in his 60s who's going to take care of me? No, she still continues to dream about building a family, having kids of her own. And if you're in your 50s or 60s, you might not want that. So you have to give that serious consideration. If you get involved with a young, pretty, attractive Asian girl, I mean, why wouldn't you guys? If you're in your 50s and 60s, why wouldn't you? But you have to appreciate that there's a high probability that she's going to want to have children. And do you really want to have children? I've said in the previous video, if you don't want kids and you're going to move to Asia and you're looking for a partner, get a vasectomy first. Seriously, it could save you a lot of heartache and a lot of financial issues in the future. We all know that men are attracted to physical aspects and visual aspects when it comes to women and what they look like, the attraction, and women are more attracted to emotional side. I see a lot of successful relationships where, for example, there's always a discussion about, should I go out with a girl from Thailand or the Philippines? Where should I live, Philippines or Thailand? A lot of people think, actually, hang on a minute, let's have the best of both worlds. Let's find a really beautiful Filipino girlfriend, fiance, wife, whatever. Find the girl of your dreams in the Philippines. She speaks English. Culturally, they're very similar with regards to Christianity and Western values, as opposed to Buddhism and Eastern values you find in Thailand. Why not take that girl, fall in love with each other, Filipino with a Western guy, and go and live in Thailand, where you benefit from the healthcare, the infrastructure, the fantastic food, etc., and not put up with a lot of frustrations about living in the Philippines. That is an option. It's almost the same as you never bring all of your money into Thailand or all of your money into the Philippines. You keep the vast majority of your wealth offshore where it's ring fenced. Well, why not take your Filipino girlfriend and put her off, and live in Thailand where she's ring fenced away from greedy family members? Similarly, when you're involved with an Asian woman and it's all about family, it's going to cost you a lot more money and you need deep pockets. There is a very valid logic in treat 'em mean and keep 'em keen. Because if you go buying land and properties for somebody, they can easily take it away from you and end the relationship. Or you've ended up investing in too much capital in that particular country and you might fall ill in the future. And if you've tied up all of your money or the vast majority of it in bricks and mortar, it's very illiquid if you need it. And the area might change. Your provincial girl may prefer living in the provinces and you're following your heart and your dick and following her into the provinces where you might not ultimately be happy. She doesn't want to live in a city or in a large town because you grew up in the provinces and that's where you found her. So she's going to be very keen on you moving back into that type of lifestyle. Well, you might not want to live in the provinces or in the jungle. I bet you when you're in your 20s or 30s or even 40s or even early 50s and you're dreaming about moving to Asia in retirement, you didn't think, I'm going to go and retire into the middle of the jungle somewhere. No, you didn't. You didn't think about that. So why be persuaded by a dominant partner to live out your latter years in an area that you don't want and be committed with large amounts of capital? No, keep yourself liquid, rent rather than buy, and just say to her, look, when I'm dead and gone, I'll make arrangements for you in your will. That's your legacy. And yeah, of course, you don't go telling a partner, certainly not in Asia, where it's a lot of it is to do with money. You don't go telling a partner, well, when I die, you'll have everything and you'll be all okay. I'll make sure that you're okay. Because then you better watch out because you've got a target on your back. No, what you make people aware of, and certainly like what I've done, is with any wealth that I have, on my demise, it goes into a trust. And I've given my trustees an explicit letter of wishes, which is instructions. They don't have to follow them, but instructions as to who I want to benefit from this money, when I want them to benefit. And if my son ends up being a drug addict or an alcoholic, he doesn't get anything. Same with any partner that you have or any wife that you have. You can arrange for her to have tranches of money on a regular basis, almost like accumulation and maintenance. So she doesn't get a large lump sum when you die, because chances are, all of a sudden, the family comes out of the woodwork with their begging bowls, and before you know it, because she's not used to a large amount of money, it's gone. It's like water. It's just gone to run down through her fingers. And before she knows it, she's left with nothing. So rather than like people winning the lottery and suddenly having large amounts of capital that they're not used to, a large amount of capital to them might be a relatively small amount to you. If you only leave 10 or 15,000 US dollars to them, that's a lot of money in the province. And it'll vanish because they're not used to this amount of money. So do them a favour as well as yourselves and say, okay, when I die, you can have everything, but it'll be in a trust managed by trustees on your behalf. It's relatively straightforward to do. So that's a very good tip. All of this comes down to when you're an expat, unless you don't get involved with anybody, which is highly unlikely, nobody wants to live lonely for the rest of their life. But when you get involved with somebody, an expat, you have to appreciate it no matter how accurate and how much time you spent doing your sums, even if you've got spreadsheets and you watch all the videos and read all the blogs about how much does it cost to live in Asia. Well, it's irrelevant. It costs how much you spend, what your lifestyle's like, how comfortable you want to be, where in Asia you want to live, what's your diet like, what's your exercise like, what's your hobbies like, what's your social life like, do you smoke, do you drink? All of these things you have to factor in. And then when you have a relationship with somebody, double or triple it. Because it's not just costing you to keep her in food and a few little bits of clothes and hygiene products. It's about sponsoring the family as well, because that is what you will end up doing. Don't kid yourself, just think that you won't, because you're a fool to yourself. You don't need to believe me. You'll be a fool to yourself. At the end of the day, life is transactional. Life is all about prostitution. In the West, they want it immediately, and in the East, they're more happy to play the long game. They know at the end of the day, they see Westerners, they see their friends, family members married, if they're Filipinas, for example, married to Western guys, and ultimately they end up with a house or a piece of land or something like that. And they want that. Why wouldn't they want that? You can't blame them for wanting that. And that is part of the payback. So how do you find a genuine Thai or genuine Filipina? Well, in a lot of instances, if you get to know other expats and other expats' girlfriends, fiancés, wives, they might, and you get to know them very well, and they get to know you, perhaps women love to matchmake, perhaps the woman of your expat friend may introduce you to one of her friends or one of her cousins or sisters or what have you, or even daughters, that is one way. Another way is online dating. Online dating is an absolute minefield. You have to appreciate that the vast majority of women online use filters. You don't tell the truth. They're living in dreamland. Also, you can use filters on video calls as well now, which adds further complication because you don't really know what the person is like until you actually meet them. And in a lot of instances, you can go out of your way and spend a lot of time and a lot of money going to visit these people in the provinces. And some of the provinces aren't particularly safe for Westerners, only to think, oh, she's not exactly as I thought she would be. And of course, if you get yourself involved with somebody that's more provincial, there's a vast difference in upbringing, education levels, mentality between yourselves. A huge difference. Being introduced to somebody from a friend of a friend can be great, but it can also be very, very difficult because if you don't get on well with that person and you don't see it going anywhere, it's like, don't shit on your doorstep, because at the end of the day, you could end up losing your expat friend and his wife, etc., because it's embarrassing for them. They've introduced a person to you and it's not gone very well. So sometimes it's probably better to do it yourself, boots on the ground. This leads me on to not so much online dating as such, but just general mentality in that when I first went to Asia in the late 90s, you never saw a fat Asian in Thailand or Philippines. And when I was at school in like the 70s and 80s, God, I'm that old, there was always the token fat kid. There was always one fat kid, but not many. Now, over 50% of kids are obese. Now, if you think you don't want to marry a woman from the West or be involved with a woman from the West because you're pissed off with their attitude and everything else, and it's always me, 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 me. Well, why do you think it's any different in the East? Because it's not. Okay, they may be 20 or 30 years behind the West, but they're catching up. You've only got to have a little walk around Asia, in Thailand or the Philippines. You never used to see a fat Asian girl. No way. They're always very ectomorphic, tiny, petite, slim, etc. Now, they're still ectomorphic, but there's a lot of fat Asians now. You go online and you look at Asians and on Asian dating, and you look at them in their 30s or 40s, what are they like? In the vast majority of cases, are they slim and attractive? Because a lot of women can keep their figures after they've had children, but look at them now. Vast majority are the very best chubby. They're catching up. The Western diet, which a lot of Asians have embraced, just like they have whitening products because they want to have white skin like people in the West, it's not a proper human diet. Now, I'm not going to go on about ketosis and keto diet, low carbs, etc. But Western food, the typical Western diet, which has been embraced and crept into Eastern food, even in places like Thailand, it's got beautiful food. Why on earth would Thais want to eat Western food when they've got amazing cuisine themselves? But it's happening. There's a lot of obesity in Asia, and it's terrible. So you're worried about Western women and you're fed up and sick to death with the attitudes of Western women, which is why you want to come to the East. It's changing in the East as well. Hello, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to say it's changing. It's at a slower pace, but it's getting there. Gen Z Asian women are not going to put up with the crap that they used to in the 1960s, 70s and 80s. In the 1960s, 70s and 80s, Asian women, and that includes Asian as in like India and Southeast Asia, Thailand, Philippines, etc. One of the prerequisites to find yourself a husband and get married is you have to keep him satisfied in bed and you have to be able to cook. The vast majority of women would never get married, would never find a husband if they couldn't cook. And it would be extremely rare in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s to ask a Thai or a Filipino if they could cook and they say no. But it's like, well, no one's going to want to marry you if you can't cook. It's ridiculous. One of the rites of passages is you got to be able to cook to look after your man and to take care of your man. In Indian culture, the Kama Sutra is not a sex book as such. It's more of marriage guidance manual, because it is the job of a grandmother in India, not the parents, because it's too close to home. The grandmother sits down with a Kama Sutra and talks to the granddaughter about this is how you satisfy a man. This is all about sex. And it's about sex and it's about cooking as well. And the general mentality is you always make sure your man goes to work with his balls empty. That way he's not going to have sex with the secretary. And when he comes home, you make sure he's got a really tasty meal on the table and you make sure he's sexually satisfied. And they get it. They understand that. But now when you go online dating in Asia, Thailand, Philippines, etc., I bet you, if you ask 5 women how well they can cook, Asian women, maybe 2 of them can cook. Or I can't cook much, or I just get grab, or I just get delivery or something or other. And you've only got to look at the Asian women that are in the fast food joints, Asian women that are sucking on bubble teas in Starbucks and having lattes and cakes and things. They never used to. They just used to be happy with street food. That's why there's a lot of obesity in Asia. That's why a lot of Asian women can't cook anymore. So how's that any different from the West? The Western mentality is encroaching on Eastern values. And this is Gen Z. These are the expats now. Or if you're planning on becoming an expat in early retirement, say 55, you're looking for a girl that's maybe in her early 20s. Well, she's pretty much Gen Z. Her attitude is, well, she's not going to put up with the same shit that women used to put up with before. So their attitudes are different. So you want to move away from that crabby attitude of the West. Well, you're getting more and more of it in the East as well. So wake up to that. Don't be naive. You have to have that provider mindset. Why do I mention it? Because it's going to cost you more money. Life is all transactional and life is about prostitution. At the end of the day, what you get and what you're prepared to give. Lots of Asian women now can't cook, won't cook, but you go online, they still want a man with a provider mindset. How different is that to a Western woman? Do your own research if you don't believe me. You'll soon see it for yourself. You can look at Eastern Europe. I've lived in Kiev, Kharkov and Odessa in Ukraine. And I've spent some time in Russia, in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And demographically, there's approximately 5 or 6 women to every man. Now, in Russia and Ukraine, before the troubles with Russia invading, with special operation, not a war, Russia invading Ukraine, prior to that, Russian men used to mostly go into the forces, into the army, because they were guaranteed a salary and that salary was paid. And they didn't need a particularly high standard of education. And a lot of guys used to mess around and drink a lot in Russia. Anyway, a lot of tomfoolery. A lot of Russian guys are big, yeah, and in the military. Russian women, on the other hand, the vast majority of Russian women are very highly educated because Russian and Ukrainian educational system is fantastic. And so a lot of Russian women come out of university with at least first, second class honours or master's degrees. Plus, they still can't get much of a job, or even if they do get a job, it's very lowly paid, and they're lucky if they get the salary, but they're very highly educated. And one of the things that Russian women are taught from a very young age, because there's like 5 or 6 women to every man, and in some areas of Ukraine, I think it's 7 women to every man. They're brought up from a very young age. You never let yourself walk out of the house unless you're looking really good. You've got to look your best. Because you never know when you might bump into the man of your dreams, or at least a man that might fall in love with you and be happy to marry you. Because it's a numbers game. So they have to make an effort. And believe you me, these Russian and Ukrainian women, I've seen it because I've lived there. Russian and Ukrainian women, they go out, you never see a scruffy one. They all look absolutely fantastic. Why? Because they got to. It's a numbers game. It's very, very similar in Asia. It's a numbers game. There's not a lot of really nice provider mindset, nice people around. So women have got to be more flexible. And in Asia, the way that they do that, if they can't afford to look that great, is they play the submissive, humble, obedient, subservient type of partner. And they're happy to accept age is just a number. Anywhere in the world, you know, that doesn't stack up, really, because it's not just about physicality, it's about mental attitude, and not just about physical stimulation, but mental stimulation. And you don't get any with large age gaps. Let's be real, guys. You're not in it for the mental stimulation, are you? That's the hand they're dealt with, and that's the hand that they play. Sometimes as expats, you need to get over yourself and have a look back at history. And certainly in the late 90s, when I was first in Thailand, 1997. I've mentioned it in a previous video that a lot of the long-term American expats were already moving out of Thailand because Thailand's changing, attitude's not the same, women aren't the same, they're getting a bit more materialistic, and they were leaving in favour of places like Cambodia, Vietnam and Laos. Fed up with Thailand, been there, seen it, done it, it's old news. And surprise, surprise, a lot of expats in Thailand now are thinking, well, Thailand's not the same as it used to be. Well, no, it's not. And Philippines, is it the same as it used to be? No. I've got a neighbour down the road who was here and experienced Mount Pinatubo blowing its top and everywhere, and all of the properties in Angela City and all around Pampanga were dirt cheap. Nobody wanted to live in Angela City anymore. It was covered like snow in volcano ash and everything else, and it wasn't the place to be. But ultimately, he loved it because the women there were great. They just treated you like kings and everything else, and they weren't too greedy. They were grateful for just anything, the simplest things. Now, no way. It's very, very different. You have to put your hands in your pockets and spend, because the women now want a lot more. And as you know, it doesn't require me to tell you this, everything in life is pretty much rented. You can't take it with you. When you die, you can't take it with you. You never really own anything. There's a famous saying that Rolls-Royce, the luxury car manufacturer, says, and it sounds a little bit pompous. And when I first heard it, I thought, well, that's a bit pompous, it's a bit snobby. But it's true. And it falls into the same category as you never really own anything because you can't take it with you. Everything in life is rented. It's a bit like life is all about prostitution, because ultimately life is transactional, and it is. And whatever you do, whatever you've got in life, all of your material things makes no difference whatsoever, because when you die, it's gone. And Rolls-Royce say, you never actually own a Rolls-Royce. You're just the custodian. Because when you die, you pass, or you give it up, you pass it on to the next custodian. And Rolls-Royces are made very, very well. They're handmade and they last a long time. And you never really own a Rolls-Royce. You just are a custodian for it for the next generation. It's a bit like grandfathers that gift their most cherished watch to their son, and their son gifts the cherished watch to their grandson. It's an heirloom. It gets passed from generation to generation. So when you die, you don't take it with you, you pass it on. It means something, it has value. Similarly, there's the example of who's more sad? The man that dies with nothing, or the man that dies in the cemetery with $1 million in the bank? Who do you feel sorry for? Now, a lot of people, natural instinct is, well, I feel sorry for the person that died with nothing. When in actual fact, you should be feeling sorry for the person that died with $1 million in the bank. Why? Because he could have done more with his life, and he chose not to. That's who you should be feeling sorry for. Get out of life what you can, because you can't take it with you. But I'm not here to preach, but just like being with a younger partner, you have to look at that relationship, because it is very physical, it's not emotional. You have to look at it. If you're an older guy with a younger partner, great, fantastic. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. Live your life and be happy. But do remember, rather than being a playboy, you are her custodian, and you are a custodian of her. You have to look after her. And chances are you have a better education than her in a lot of instances. Even if you're a blue collar worker, chances are your education in the West has been better than her education. And there are people out there, that my girlfriend or my wife went to college, she's got a degree or whatever. She's in the Philippines, she left high school, she went to college, she went to university, she got a degree. Yeah. But anybody that's an expat with any ounce of intelligence and experience knows full well that degrees in Asia, excluding Hong Kong, Singapore and some of the top universities in Malaysia, when you look at the vast majority of universities in Asia, certainly in the Philippines, they come nowhere near the top universities in the world. Certainly in the UK, Europe and America, nowhere near. So chances are you are on a different intellectual and experience level. Certainly if you're a couple of decades older than her, there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to appreciate the fact that you're then her custodian, and you have to love her and take care of her because of that. And because you're her custodian in life, it's going to cost you more money, which is the whole point of this video. Most expats that come to Asia looking for a partner First thing they want to know before they come is, what's the budget like? How much does it cost me? How much is electricity? How much is everything else? They just think about, well, I'm going to meet myself a nice partner. The biggest thing you should be asking is, how wealthy is the partner's family? Have they got any money at all? How many brothers and sisters are there? Because at the end of the day, when you get involved with her, you're going to get involved with the whole family. And you have to be prepared to pay for it. Because unlike Western women, which is me, as I've said, Asian women, family, 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 family. So not only you are getting involved with her, you're getting involved with the whole family, and you darn well better have deep pockets, because that's what's going to cost you more than worrying about how much is the electricity or how much is my Wi-Fi bill going to be. The woman is going to be what makes you or breaks you, and her family. Do your own maths, do your own sums, do your research, and you will fully appreciate that life is indeed transactional. You never actually own anything. And life is, like my life coach said to me 30 plus years ago, and I never got it at the time, life is all about prostitution. It's about what you're prepared to give, and for that, what you want. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. It does help the YouTube algorithm get my video out to more people. It's important that expats and potential expats know this and appreciate it. Thank you.